You yield, you listen, you tolerate, and yet you still feel like you're always one step away from being discarded, as if your presence is useful but not essential, as if, deep down, you're trying to earn something that should already be natural: respect. Seneca once said, "Power over others is fragile. True mastery is over oneself." And that changes everything, because what most men have learned is wrong. They taught you that power means control, that love requires sacrifice, that being a man is carrying the world on your shoulders while smiling like it doesn't hurt. But let me tell you something, clearly, without sugarcoating. True power doesn't make noise. It doesn't need to shout, to prove, to beg, or explain. It's felt. Silent yet present, invisible yet undeniable, and it begins exactly at the point where you decide you will no longer negotiate with your own essence. Most men don't realize it, but they live constantly seeking approval. She sends a sweet message. He smiles, exhales. She goes silent. He panics. She pulls away. He chases. She returns. He's grateful not to have been discarded. This cycle is the slow death of your dignity, because the man who lives as a hostage to her reactions has already lost control over his own soul. Real power isn't about dominating someone. It's about being unshakable, even when everything around you tries to knock you off balance. It's about knowing who you are, even when she tries to make you doubt. It's about staying whole, even when she threatens to walk away. You don't need to raise your voice to be heard. You don't need to force your presence to be noticed. You don't need to give up everything to be loved. And above all, you don't need to lose yourself to keep someone by your side. Believe me, the more you bend, the more she pulls away. Because a woman doesn't want an emotional servant. She wants a pillar. And a pillar doesn't beg, it holds. What destroys a man the most isn't the breakup. It's the feeling of having shrunk so much he no longer recognizes himself in the mirror. It's looking back and realizing he broke himself into pieces to please someone who never asked for it. Because the deepest desire of the man who suffers in silence isn't revenge or attention. It's simply to be seen, to be respected, to be enough without having to try so hard for it. This video isn't about manipulation. It's not about tactics. It's not about making her chase you. It's about you, about taking back what slipped away. Your presence, your firmness, your axis. Because true power doesn't impose. It emanates naturally, inevitably, and it starts with one decision. The decision to stop chasing what keeps dissolving and to start building within yourself what no one else can take away. Presence, self-control, self-mastery. You don't need to be cruel. You need to be clear. And above all, you need to be whole. Even when everything tries to break you, this is the beginning. If you want to keep going, this is where the return starts. Breathe. Turn inward. Because the man who commands himself commands everything around him. Have you ever felt relieved just because she replied to your message with a little more warmth, as if the simple act of her showing affection gave you back something that had been missing inside you? And when she goes quiet, your chest tightens, as if something went wrong, even if nothing was said. This emotional oscillation consumes you because you live according to the signal she gives. She smiles, you relax. She ignores you, you unravel. She compliments you, you feel you're on the right path. She criticizes you, you feel worthless, and little by little, without noticing, you begin to exist only through the reflection she offers. But here's the hard and freeing truth. The man who measures his worth by a woman's reaction has already lost control of his own story. Because when your self-esteem depends on her gaze, you become a fractured mirror, only feeling whole when you're being reflected by someone else. This need for approval comes with a cost. You start giving more than you should, silencing your thoughts, afraid of displeasing her, tolerating what hurts you, just to maintain the connection. Molding yourself, adapting, shrinking, until in the end, you no longer know where you begin and where the effort to be accepted ends. And you know what happens next? She stops admiring you, because as contradictory as it sounds, a woman doesn't respect a man who bends too much. She may enjoy being heard, she may enjoy attention, But when she realizes you've lost yourself just to keep her, something inside her pulls back, because respect comes from firmness, not excessive gentleness, from presence, not submission disguised as care. She wants to feel that even though you're with her, you're still your own, and that, if necessary, you would walk away without losing your essence. No man earns power by trying to please, because true power doesn't come from what you have. It comes from what you don't need. You don't need her smile to feel capable. You don't need her reply to feel at peace. You don't need her presence to validate who you are. The man who begs for scraps of attention becomes small in his own eyes. And the worst part isn't when she walks away. The worst part is when you've already walked away from yourself, just to make her stay. Her respect doesn't come from how much you want her. It comes from how much you don't lose yourself, even when you have her. In the end, true power isn't about conquest. It's about staying whole while the world tries to break you. And if you feel this pain, this silent anguish of always trying, always pleasing, always waiting, know that this isn't weakness, it's just confusion. And now it's time to clear the fog with firmness, with presence, with you back at the center. She doesn't test you with punches. She tests you with silences, with ambiguous words, with looks that say everything and nothing, with small withdrawals, loose phrases, subtle shifts in the pattern. And you, without noticing, step into the game. You reply instantly, you justify, you chase, you ask what's wrong, you react like someone afraid of losing something he's not even sure he has. And in that movement, you give up your position, you step out of your center, you lose command. In behavioral psychology, self-control isn't just a virtue, it's intelligence. Because the man who reacts on impulse is always playing on someone else's emotional field. He doesn't lead, he adapts, he doesn't observe, he assumes. And when you assume, you misstep. And when you misstep, you weaken yourself even more. The powerful man, the one she watches with silent respect, doesn't react in haste. He pauses, he breathes, he sees beyond the surface. He doesn't fold to subtle triggers, because he knows who he is, and that's enough. He responds from principles, not fear. He doesn't try to control the situation. He commands his own mind. Notice, impulse screams, maturity waits, desperation answers, presence silences. The less you react, the more you observe. And the more you observe, the more you realize many of her tests aren't challenges. They're unconscious requests for stability. She doesn't want to destabilize you. She wants to know if you can hold steady, if you're solid ground, or just another man who collapses at the first emotional wind. When you stop reacting on instinct, something shifts. In the way you walk, in the way you look, in the way you take your place. You stop being an extension of her emotion and become the foundation. You become the anchor, not the leaf. And in that moment, without saying a word, you reprogram how she sees you, because she feels, even if she doesn't understand, that something's different. Something that doesn't need to be said, because it's evident. Something she can't manipulate, because it's solid. Something she respects, because it's rare. Emotional power isn't the absence of feeling. It's mastery over what is felt. It's knowing you could act and choosing to wait. It's knowing you could speak and choosing to stay silent. It's knowing you could yield and choosing to hold firm. This kind of power isn't taught. It's cultivated in silence, in pause, in choice. True leadership begins when you stop being a hostage to her emotions and become a master of your own. Because in the end, the man who commands himself commands everything around him. Many men confuse power with authority, with rigidity, with a firm voice and harsh orders. They think that if they're tough, distant, commanding, they'll be respected. But they don't realize that by trying to dominate her behavior, they're just hiding their fear of being rejected. A woman doesn't look for an emotional tyrant. She doesn't want someone who commands, she wants someone who sustains. She's not looking for a man who controls her. She's looking for a man who doesn't lose control. Because deep down, the test isn't to see if you can command her. It's to see if you command yourself. When she pulls away, she's watching. When she provokes, she's watching. When she stirs up drama, she's watching. Not what you say, but who you are behind your reaction. She wants to feel that you're still there, present, stable, firm, even when she falls apart. Power at this level isn't about winning the argument. It's about not needing to argue. It's about not trying to be right. It's about keeping your composure while everything around you begs for a scream. It's easy to lose control when you feel you're being tested, but real respect is born when she sees that you're the same, in affection or intention. This kind of security can't be bought. It can't be demanded. It can't be forced. It comes from your internal structure. It's born from the fact that you don't need to prove anything, because the one who tries to prove already doubts. And the one who doubts has already lost. She will come closer again. But not because you demanded it, not because you raised your voice, not because you made her feel afraid. She returns because even when she tried to destabilize you, she found steadiness. And that steadiness is rare, magnetic, undeniable. True power is not in the shout. It's in the silence of someone who knows himself. It's not in imposition. It's in the presence of someone who is enough. A woman respects the man who knows how to lead his own reaction, more than the one who tries to lead her behavior. And that changes everything, because when you become that man, unshakable, clear, whole, you no longer need to dominate. You become the very definition of security, and security is where every woman longs to rest. You don't need to raise your voice, nor justify yourself, nor repeat 10 times that you deserve respect. A truly powerful man shows who he is, in silence, in how he walks, in how he decides, in how he protects what keeps him whole. When she tries to invade your time with emotional urgencies and you don't abandon your routine, that's power. When she expects you to react in desperation, but you keep your shoulders straight, your voice firm, and your gaze steady, that's power. When she realizes you're with her because you want to be, not because you need to be, that's power. A woman senses. She senses when you're living around her. She senses when you abandon yourself just so you don't lose her. And she senses just as intensely when you're whole, even beside her. And that feeling makes her adjust the way she sees you, speaks to you, opens up to you. Deciding based on logic, not fear of loss, changes everything. Because when fear drives your decisions, she smells the insecurity, and insecurity devalues. But when principle is what moves you, not need, the air around you changes. You don't get agitated. You don't overextend. You simply are. And the most interesting thing, respect is not requested. It's not demanded. It's evoked by the way you treat yourself. If you treat yourself with value, with limits, with direction, she understands she cannot manipulate you. And not because you imposed it, but because she feels it. Never try to convince a woman that you're valuable, because if you need to convince her, it's because you still doubt it. And every time you try to prove your worth, you're admitting you don't believe in it. The man who knows who he is simply lives and lets her notice. This kind of presence is rare. It unsettles, it disarms, it captivates, and it doesn't depend on a word. It depends on the invisible firmness of someone who doesn't trade their integrity to stay in a relationship. That's power. It's what emanates, not what's imposed. It's what's felt, not what's declared. It's what she perceives when you remain yourself, even when everything tries to pull you out of center. There's something in the body of a man who's realized his own value. He doesn't need to run or explain or fill the space with words. Presence speaks for him. It's not arrogance, it's rootedness. He doesn't orbit others. He is the center, and everything around him moves as a result. This man doesn't check his phone every 2 minutes, waiting for a reply. He doesn't need to be constantly available to prove interest. He doesn't lose himself to keep someone close. He moves with intention. Every gesture has a reason. Every choice has roots, and that is noticed. Even when he says nothing, his gaze is steady but not aggressive, calm but penetrating. It's the gaze of someone who sees without needing to judge, who sees the game but doesn't fall into the provocation. His breathing is slow, his walk is calm, his voice is measured. Because the one who carries urgency in his body has already lost control. Presence isn't noise, presence is density. It's when she feels that even in silence, you are fully there. Not trying to please, not seeking approval, not testing the ground, just there, with posture, with clarity, with emotional weight. Mentally, he holds an unshakable truth. I don't need anyone to validate me, and that makes him free. And that freedom makes him magnetic. Because most men live begging for affection, for attention, for belonging, but the man who doesn't bow attracts. That magnetism can't be explained. It's felt, and she feels it. Even if she doesn't know why, she senses something different, something that doesn't bend, something that doesn't break, something that doesn't beg. It's when you stop being a satellite, orbiting around her moods, and become a center, still, serene, respectable. And the moment she realizes you're not living around her, but that your life already has direction, even before she arrived, she understands. This man isn't here out of need. He's here by choice. And men like that are becoming rare. Seneca said, "The greatest freedom is to not be a slave to any need." And that hits deep, because most men are trapped by needs they can't even name. The need to be accepted, to be liked, to be validated, to be chosen. But true power begins when you break that dependency, when you realize you don't need a woman to feel valuable, when you stop searching in her gaze for the permission to be whole, because the moment you need her to confirm who you are, she starts seeing you as someone who doesn't know who he is. And that's the point. A powerful man doesn't live on impulse. He feels but doesn't bow. He desires but doesn't lose himself. He loves but doesn't erase himself. Real power lies between what you feel and what you do. It's in the pause between the heat of emotion and the choice that comes after. It's in the ability to observe your own impulse and not be ruled by it. You may feel anger, fear, anxiety, but you don't react in haste, because those who rush reveal desperation, and those who despair give away their control. A woman notices when you're not okay, but what makes her respect you isn't what you feel, it's what you do with what you feel. It's when you remain firm, even under the weight of confusion. It's when you stay centered, even when everything inside you begs for escape. In the end, it's simple and brutally true. You don't earn power by shouting. You earn it by staying standing while everyone else collapses. You earn it by remaining whole while she fluctuates. You earn it by saying little, but being much. Be the man who doesn't beg, doesn't justify, doesn't shape himself to every mood swing. Be the man who leads himself, even when no one's watching. Because in the end, the man who commands himself commands everything around him.